Hi everybody, welcome back to Chit Chat and Tea with Amanda Marie. I hope you guys are doing good out there. Welcome to another episode of Choosing an Attitude of Gratitude. We are on episode 3. We made it to episode 3. Yay! I hope you guys have been enjoying the episodes I've been putting out. I know I've been taking a lot from this book that I've been sharing with you guys, Choosing Gratitude, Your Journey to Joy by Nancy Lee DeMoss. I have been enjoying it. It's been a real blessing in my life. I'm glad I chose to read it and share it with you all. Before I get into it, I just want to say welcome to my channel. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, thank you guys for watching my videos. I hope you guys are enjoying them. I hope that I'm blessing you all out there, putting a smile on your face. If you enjoy, please like, subscribe. I would love to hear from you all. Put a comment. So let's get into it. Today, we are going to be focusing on ingratitude, not gratitude. So today's going to be a little bit of a downer, but you know, we've got to learn to sometimes deal with the stuff that maybe we don't want to talk about or we don't want to face, because we all have issues, I think, or we've all had issues at one point in our lives with ingratitude. So this chapter that I read that I'm going to talk to you guys about was called No Thanks. That's what she called it, which I thought was appropriate. And she starts off this chapter with a story of a man who basically, this happened back in 1860. And it's a story about this man who basically was a passerby, and he saw all these people. This happened on Lake Michigan, okay? And there were all these people on this boat, ship, whatever. They were doing like a late summer day trip, okay? It was called Lady Elgin was the name of the ship they were on, and basically it started to sink, and at like 2:30 in the morning, okay? And this man, I'm sorry, I'm just looking for the guy's name. Oh, Edward Spencer. That was the man's name. So basically, just to cut it short, this man he ended up jumping into the water and saving like 17 people. Like, he kept going back. He would save someone, bring him to shore, and then he actually ended up like making a little fire for himself on the shore, and like, when he would start to hear, like he could hear someone, he would run back in and grab somebody, try to get them and save them. He did this all night long, okay? Because keep in mind, this is back in 1860, okay? And so yeah, he ended up saving like, I'm just trying to look to see how many people were actually on that. I think it said like 36 people or something like that. And he ended up being able to save 17 of those people. Which is, incredible, because if you think about how much it said there was a very strong undercurrent that he was fighting the whole time, like that, I guess that's why a lot of people ended up not making it.
Mommy.
Yeah, sweetie.
My baby doesn't have any knives.
Hold on one sec. All right. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So what I was getting to here was that there was a strong undercurrent, and it was really taking a lot out of him to have to keep going back in and getting people, but he kept doing it. He was, I guess he was a seminary student at a nearby Northwestern University. So he grew up on the Mississippi River. He knew how to handle himself in the water, and he ended up tying a long rope around his waist, diving into the choppy waters of Lake Michigan, pulling victims out to the shore, struggling hard against the ferocious undertow that was claiming the last strength of many of the cliff walls. I mean, you can imagine that he was like super exhausted, and like I said, he ended up being able to save 17 people. The moral of this story, and this is a true story, and the thing is, then a reporter went and interviewed him, and they asked him, and they said, the reporter asked him, and though his valor would at times be recalled in newspaper accounts, when asked by the reporter what he recalled about the rescue, he replied only this: of the 17 people I saved, not one of them ever thanked me. And that's what he that was the thing that stuck out most in his mind. Can you imagine that? And I think this was like years later, like when he was a lot older. So he ended up not being able to, like, after this happened, like, he literally was never the same. Like, he got really sick, and he, like, ended up, like, spending, it literally says that he, like, spent most of his life in a wheelchair after that. He wasn't able to go back to seminary school and finish up. I guess he wanted to become a pastor. That's what he was kind of looking to go do, and his life was never the same. He wasn't able to go do that, and he was sickly the rest of his life. It just, he just pushed his body, I guess, beyond the limit, and then his body never really fully recovered. And that's what he remembers when they asked him years later, what do you remember about that night? The most, what sticks out in your mind? And that's what it was. Nobody ever thanked him. So that's how she started this chapter, which I thought was really, wow, like that. That's, when you think about that, that's just, it's horrible, Here this man, he saved all these people. He put his own life in jeopardy, number one. Number two, he was never the same. He, suffered immensely for what he did, and nobody ever thanked him. So, okay, honey. Oh. Okay. There's going to be a lot of editing in this video because that's okay. So, wow, just, pretty incredible story. And then she goes on to talk about, basically, then she brings up the story of how Jesus, when he healed the lepers in Luke 17, and she talks about how only one of them came back to thank him afterwards. And if there's anybody to thank, my goodness, I would think that Jesus would be the one. And it's I never thought of it, like, you know what I mean? Like, I knew of that story, and I'm sure I've heard it several times in my life. And only one man, only one person, I guess there were 10 lepers, and only one went back to thank him. So ingratitude is, she says, ingratitude, there's something especially distasteful and repulsive about this. Especially when we're the ones whose generosity or sacrifice has gone unrecognized. Jesus, for example, had every reason to be annoyed at those who had received everything they ever wanted from him, yet couldn't be bothered to say thank you. And yet, how often do we neglect to return thanks for a kindness done, a duty performed, or a step saved while being oblivious to our ingratitude? Gradually, subtly, but we become desensitized as layers of entitlement and resentment wrap themselves around our hearts until thankfulness is all but gone from our lips and our lives. It isn't hard for it to happen, even in the most precious of relationships, which is just, I wanted to make sure I read that because that really resonated with me, and I got convicted. I certainly did. And many years ago, for example, I began giving a 30-day encouragement challenge to wives. I encouraged them to confront ingratitude and cultivate a thankful spirit in their marriage with 2 simple steps. I found this really interesting. Number 1, she challenged these women, okay? Number 1, she said, for the next 30 days, purpose not to say anything negative about your husband. Not to him and not to anyone else about him. Okay, that was the number 1 challenge she gave these women. Number 2, she said every day for the next 30 days, express at least one thing you admire or appreciate about your husband. Say it to him and to someone else about him. She said it was an amazing and eye-opening how difficult some of these wives found this simple exercise to be. They couldn't do it. Some of them just, you're sitting there and you're like, you're at this seminar or whatever, and you get this challenge set before you, and you're probably thinking, okay, I can go home and I can do this. Okay, I won't talk bad about my husband. I won't say anything negative to him or anybody else about him. And only say positive things to him, and I'll only speak positively about him to anybody else. Then you get home and you actually try to do it and you can't. I shouldn't be laughing, but I am, because what happens is, and like she said, you don't even realize what's going on, that you have gradually and subtly become desensitized as layers of entitlement and resentment wrap themselves around our hearts. And wow, that is just so true. We don't even realize it's happening. You know what I mean? Until you're confronted with some type of, a situation where maybe you need to go speak, or these words to someone, whether it be your husband or one of your children or something, and you need to go, and not be negative and not, be critical, but be encouraging and or be, you know, loving and positive and say good positive things to this person. Now, let me just say this first. let me say something really quick. I do want to say that I've been married to my husband. We've been together for over 20 years now. Okay, so when you're with someone that long, I can honestly speak that yes, you go through seasons. You know, you go through seasons, and anybody who's been with someone, you know, for a while, let's just say that they know you go through seasons. You go through times when you're, you know, maybe you're not speaking things that you should be speaking, or, you know, and you go through times where your things are really good, you know. So, I mean, but I can honestly say, oops, hold on. Okay. She's having a hard time getting her baby doll's dresses on her baby dolls. So anyway, yeah, you go through seasons. You know, you go through times when it is difficult to maybe speak, you know, like positively and you know, for whatever reasons, you know, and that goes both ways, okay? But I really appreciated this challenge that she put out, because the test is when you try to actually go do it, and if you're confronted with like a spirit within yourself that can't do it, like can't bring yourself to do these things, to not speak negatively about your husband or your wife, and not, you know, go talk to somebody else negatively about them, and only speak positive, then there's some issues there. And you know, you have to confront those issues, and you have to accept that, okay, there's something blocking me here, you know. And what it is she's saying here, okay, she goes, many have been shocked to discover the extent of their ungrateful, critical spirit. One woman wrote to her, I began this challenge. I thought I only spoke negatively to or about my husband maybe just once in a while. You know, let's be honest, we all do it, okay? You know what I'm saying? We all do it, okay? She's saying, I thought I only did it every once in a while. Unless you're like in the total honeymoon phase, I'm sorry, like, they say the honeymoon phase is like, I think it's like the first 2 years or something like that, I guess. I think. But after that, I'm sorry, like after 2 years of being with someone, you are going to have some bad moments. I don't know, you know. If you're not, then God bless you. But yeah, you know, all those little things in each other start to come out and start to, you know, get annoying to each other. I mean, it's just the reality of life, okay? And yeah, so this woman was like, I thought I only spoke negatively about him like every once in a while, but it's surprising to me how often the thoughts came to my mind that I had to, you know, work at letting them not pass through my lips. And I've grown so accustomed to thinking a lot of bad things about him than just blurting them out, you know, to your children, to your mother, your friends, whoever, you know. And this challenge has changed the way I communicate with my husband, she said. And she goes, the difficult but rewarding walk from gripping to gratitude. I love that. Yeah, so I mean, and again, you know, the reality is that sometimes, you know, things are done in marriages that are just, you know, difficult to deal with, you know. things happen between two people, feelings get hurt, you know, and these things, you know, happen. It's just the reality of life. But I do think there's a difference between, you know, having to communicate with your husband or your wife about something that maybe is going on between the two of those two people that needs to be talked about, because it's the right thing to communicate in a healthy, you know, loving way, right? Of, you know, like, say for example, like, your husband hurts your feelings. He said something to somebody that really hurt you, or said it to you, whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with confronting that and saying, you know what, that really hurt my feelings, and I can't, you know, I'm really upset that you said that, or whatever, right? But that's different than having a spirit of ingratitude where you're just like, you know, all the little things that get on your nerves about him. You know what I'm saying? He snores, or he does this, or he does that. And you're like, ugh, you know, I'm so sick of him with this, and I'm so sick of him with that. You know, it's different. So I don't want to get that, you know, confused. Like, you know, we're never supposed to be able to speak our minds or have moments where we can, you know, get something off our chest that, you know, we have the right to talk about. I think it's a different thing, okay? This is addressing a spirit of somebody who is just kind of like complaining about this person. And because I think we all at times, again, have gotten in this pattern, you know, whether it's about your husband or your kids or your mother-in-law or your mother or your friend or your whoever, okay? We've all gotten in a pattern, you know, where we start complaining about whatever's going on. I mean, gosh, I know that I do it about my kids big time. I do it to my husband. I complain to them about our kids together, you know. We sit and we do it together sometimes. I mean, we do, you know, because you know, whether they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're not doing their chores, or they're not doing whatever. But again, it's getting in this pattern where you just are doing that all the time. And it's just, it comes from a place, like she said, a critical, ungrateful spirit within us, you know? So that's what we need to kind of keep in check, you know? So I appreciated that, and that kind of made me think about myself and the way I am, you know, and I've been in my life. So yeah. She also says at one point, she goes, she talks about, you know, just the effects of ingratitude on a whole, and she kind of goes really deep into this, and she said, I mean, that she goes, she called this section Instigators of Ingratitude, and she goes, you may wonder if I'm making too much of this, but I assure you this is no light matter. Ingratitude is one of our enemy's most lethal weapons. And she goes, in our homes, in our churches, we're all suffering dreadfully from the effects of it. Our entire society, in fact, is feeling the fallout. So much of what is wrong in our lives, and in our lives, out of sync, out of sorts, out of harmony, can be traced back to the root of ingratitude. So we must guard our hearts against it at every turn, watching for the telltale signs, feelings and attitudes that can set it off in us. Things such as, then she has this list of things, okay? And I thought this was really a great list that she came up with. Number one, she says unrealistic expectations. That one really resonates with me. I am going to say that that's something that God dealt with me years ago with that. And I've actually really come a long way with that. I have to say, when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, that is so true. And I used to struggle with that a lot. I used to have these expectations in my mind about how someone should be, whether it be my husband, my whoever, my kids, my other family members, just whoever. And when you do that, when you have unrealistic expectations put on somebody, they're always going to end up failing. They're going to end up failing. Okay? They can't possibly ever meet those expectations. And that's a lesson I learned a long, long time ago. She says, we expect others to take the place of God in our lives. And depending on them to guide our decisions, to love us continuously and unconditionally, to provide for us emotionally, physically, socially, totally. And when they disappoint us, and they always will, which is inevitably, she says inevitably it happens, rather than being grateful for God's unchanging love, okay, and God meeting our needs, those unfulfilled expectations easily turn to resentment that poisons our hearts and our relationships. And that's exactly what ends up happening when you do that. When you do that to somebody else, another human, okay, you always end up disappointed. Sorry, I just hit the camera with my foot. And you always end up, then you get, upset with that person. They disappointed you. Then you're resentful towards that person. So, yeah. That is a very true one. And I think that's very, very, very important to remember that. The next one she points out is forgetfulness. She says that, like she talked about that first story I shared with you guys about the man who saved all those people and nobody said thank you, right? Nobody said thank you. And that's what sticks out in his mind years down the road when he was an older man, that no one thanked him, so that's another thing that we need to make sure we're always, if somebody does something for us, we got, and believe me, I'm guilty of this too, that, forgetting to say thank you. And she talks about how she puts out a lot of examples in the Bible where people, forgot to thank God for things. And she said forgetfulness and ingratitude go hand in hand. They forget to thank God for his deliverance, his faithfulness, his provision, his protection, his miracles on their behalf. So we never want to be forgetful of being thankful. And that's a very important point. The next one she points out is entitlement. Entitlement She says, I was interacting about this book with a friend in his 80s who has faithfully walked with God for most of his life. And so basically he tells this story, this man, and he's saying that in his own life he had a default position hidden beneath the surface, and it was an ever-present entitlement attitude. He said it was his biggest problem. When we take simple blessings for granted as they were owed, like as if they were owed to us, okay? When we start to think that our house, our car, our wardrobe, our general station in life is beneath what we deserve, okay? Ingratitude finds all the oxygen it needs to thrive. One of the unseemly side effects of all that effort and energy our society has invested in building our individual and collective self-esteem is that our culture is now rife with the super high level of deservedness. Yeah. This is so true. I thought I heard somebody. Especially here in the United States. This is a big issue. Big one. And the more affluent we are, the higher our standard of living, it seems, the more demanding and discontented we become. Be careful where you place that bar for you can and can't, and what you can and cannot live without. The height of that baseline affects just about everything. That good old saying, keeping up with the Joneses, right? You think, oh, I just, once I get this and this and this and this, then I'll be happy and I won't need anything else. Then you get this, this, and this, and this. And it's not enough. And you want more. You want more, you want more, you want more. And it's never enough. And that's a trap of entitlement. And it's like she's saying, if you get into that trap, it's a slippery slope, as they say. Instead of having the opposite spirit and, attitude of just being grateful for everything you have, and if you get something, more than that, then yay, that's great, but you're not constantly, like, I gotta have more, I gotta get more. You're content with what you have. And, if you are blessed with more, then that's a blessing. You know what I mean? Okay, the next one she speaks about is comparison. This is more than just keeping score on who has what and being perturbed because we don't have as much as they do. Sorry, it's like, there we go. She says it's every bit as dangerous and deceptive for us to focus on the many sacrifices we're making, the hard work we're performing, the extra hours we've been putting in, comparing our level of labor and commitment with what others are investing. Anytime our focus is on ourselves, even if it's on the good things we're doing, it keeps us from being grateful for what others are contributing. We lose our appreciation for our spouse, our children, our friends, our coworkers when we constantly view them through our own shadow. That one I definitely have I am guilty of that one.
I found a coin.
Oh, thank you, Ro. I am definitely guilty of that one. I do that with, especially with my kids, like I kind of mentioned earlier. I will literally go around the house and just be looking around at everything that needs to be done. And I will just start going off about, you people don't do anything around here. And then I will start comparing them to me and what I do for them and what they're not doing for me. And I think as parents, we've all been there, right? We've all been there, especially this is, more with older kids, you know what I'm saying? But, and again, that doesn't mean that those children, those people they should be doing what they're supposed to be doing too. I mean, they should be doing their part as well. But again, like she said, when you are constantly, viewing everybody through your own shadow, okay, and not, and comparing, oh, look at what I do compared to what you do. Look at me, look at everything that I'm going through compared to what that's what she's more talking about. Again, it's that spirit, it's that critical spirit, that ungrateful spirit that's coming out, where there's a more loving, healthy way to approach, someone that maybe needs to be approached about a situation. And you're not really doing the comparing, you're just more saying, look, you're not keeping up your responsibilities on your part that you should be doing, So, I've definitely fallen into that one where I've gone off on my kids and just been like, hey, you people, look at this, look at me, look at what I go through, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Okay. Okay. So I've done that big time. And it's happened in my marriage. I mean, my husband's done it to me. I've done it to him. So, I mean, yeah, I totally can, and it is. It's a slippery slope, that one. Nobody's going to win. Because guess what? You're going to just sit there and you're going to keep going back and forth. No, I have it harder than you. No, I have it harder. No, I have it. No. Right? So, somebody has to step back and be like, this is not healthy. This is not good. Like, we have to, like, let's stop making yourself the center of attention, right? Like, that's the key to this. When you are having a grateful spirit, when you are having a loving, grateful spirit, you're not thinking about me. You know what I mean? The next one that she brings up is blindness to God's grace. And I mean, that one is definitely one that, we see a lot of in the world. Again, like in my last video, I talked about how the foundation at the end of the day, the foundation is, for me, is my gratefulness to God, because He is the giver of all good things. So, whatever I'm grateful for in this life is because of Him, ultimately, right? So when we miss that and we are blind to His grace in our lives, it causes, there's a lot of issues there, and she talks about, she actually brings up how ingratitude is no less heinous of a sin than any other evil traits, she says. And she talks about how Paul, the Apostle Paul, wrote of it, and there's good reason she says that in the second letter to Timothy, Paul listed ingratitude or ungratefulness right in the middle of such evils as abusiveness, heartlessness, brutishness, and treachery. He put being ungrateful in the middle of those, he was listing off these evil traits. And an ungrateful spirit was right there in there. So that's really something to take in and digest and think about. And yeah. She closed this chapter up with a little story about this man who she knew who traveled to India, and he was passing through New Delhi, and I guess it's in one of the most horrible slums in the world. And he stood there transfixed before a 3-year-old little boy leaning over against the cot of his ailing, perhaps dying mother. The boy's eyes were hollow, his stomach distended, his face fly-infested, the very picture of a massive helpless poverty. The tears that streamed down, this man's name was Paul, down Paul's cheeks in observing this tragedy were indeed the heartfelt evidence of his compassion. He longed to sweep this boy and his mother into his arms, away from this dreaded depth of sorrow and endless need, but it was more than the mere compassion he felt. It was an awareness that neither he nor this little boy had chosen their circumstances in life. The blessings of being raised among plenty, nurtured by godly parents, educated in a quality school, and given over to God at a young age rolled over him in waves, even as he did his best to comfort and console the needy pair before him. He cannot explain the difference between that little boy and me, but anything other than the Lord, he wrote. Standing there in that slum, I felt all the complaints I ever had spoken as if they were a weight on my shoulders. I was filled with a deeper gratitude than I had ever felt in my life. He said, no long after he arrived back home, Paul was visiting with a church leader from India who had come to the States to study, and in the midst of their conversation, he asked the man what he thought of Americans. To which the guest responded in a polite way. He said, do you want me to be honest? Right? And the man said, yes, I do. But who could really be ready for this? You have no idea how much you have, the man said. And he said, and yet you're always complaining. That's what the man said to him. Again, that's what the man asked him, what do you think of Americans? And the man said back, you have no idea how much you have, and yet you're always complaining. I think that's another one that I want to frame and put somewhere in my house. Honestly, the other one was for my last episode. Whatever you're thankful for today, I can't paraphrase it. Whatever you're thankful for today is what you're going to have for tomorrow. Something along those lines, And this one I like too. It's so true, guys. It's just so true. And I've never been out of the United States, guys. So I'm not trying to sit here like I'm some kind of like, I know what it's like to go stay in these other places. I don't. But I have educated myself enough, and I try to purposely educate myself and my children to not be ignorant of this, okay? And to understand that the way we live here is not the norm in most of the world, okay? And that people have a whole other way of living life in a lot of other places, and that we need to think about that and really understand that. And yet here we are, we have so much, right? Physically and everything, you know, food wise and everything else, you know, technology wise, whatever. And yet we still find things that we need to complain about all the time, right? And it's just getting worse. I feel it's just getting worse as the years go on. I guess maybe because we're getting more and more stuff. I don't know, you know, more and more technology, more and more whatever, you know. So yeah, that's something I think we should all be asking ourselves and really thinking about. And we don't want to have an ungrateful, critical spirit. We want to have, you know, the opposite, right? So those are kind of, to me, like the fruits, the rotten fruits of an ungrateful, critical spirit. Those things she listed off, you know, forgetfulness, and that's forgetfulness of you know, being thankful. Just not caring to thank people for things, you know, even the littlest things, you know. Unrealistic expectations that you put on others. Comparing, you know, that comparison, always having that spirit where you're just like, always like, oh, you don't do like I do, and you don't, you know, like that. Being entitled, you know, like, I deserve more, better than this. Now, I just want to say this, though, real quick. There is one thing to, and I don't know why, I just feel like I need to say this, just to clear this up. Like, it's one thing if you're in an abusive situation and you're in a situation that is not safe, okay? And then you have to, you know, that's different. Okay, I'm not talking about something like that. That's a whole other different thing. Of course, nobody deserves to be mistreated and, you know, abused and whatnot. That's a whole other ballgame, guys. Okay, so that's not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about, you know, like I talked about when I said entitlement. Just always being like, I need more. I deserve a better house. I deserve a better car. I deserve a better wardrobe. I deserve a better this and this and that. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So yeah, that's what that's speaking on. And the blindness to God's grace, you know, in our lives. So yeah, guys, those are all things that we really need to, like, make sure, you know, that we're not falling into the traps of these things, you know. We want to have the opposite fruits of all of those things, right? So like I mentioned last week, you know, I read that chapter, and then I always do these little devotionals that are in the back of the book. And there were a few little gems in here that I wanted to share before we close this episode up. One thing she said in one of the devotionals I did, I loved, and I just loved it. She said, we never get closer to Jesus than when we come with a humble gratitude. I just wanted to share that because I thought that, I love that. You know, when you have when you have that spirit, a humble spirit and a spirit of gratitude, you are so close. That's when you are so close to Jesus. You know, that's when you are having the same spirit that he had, you know, essentially. And I loved that, so I wanted to share that. And also, she mentions in here, she talks about this. I like this one. I thought this was kind of, I don't know, I like this one right here. She's telling a little story about this preacher that's giving a sermon. He was a Scottish minister, Alexander White. He was known for his uplifting prayers, and he always found something for which to be grateful for. But one morning, the weather was so dank and gloomy, and the church members said among themselves, certainly today, he won't find anything to thank the Lord for such a wretched day. And much to their surprise, however, White stepped up to the pulpit that dreary morning, and he began by praying. He said, "We thank thee, Lord, that it is not always like this. There are blessings in your life and mine, yours and mine, that no eye has seen nor heard. Blessings that only can show themselves by not showing up." I like this. I really like this. "Today, try listing as many of those things to be grateful for as you can think of," she said. She goes, "For example, think of the miles you've driven without getting a flat tire. Think of the big tree out in front of your house that's never dropped damaging limbs onto your house. Think of a destructive sin or habit in your life that God has kept you from being tempted by. Think of perhaps, she says, perhaps you're hobbled by a medical problem or two, but think of the dozen that you've never experienced." She said, "Look at all the benefits on your growing list of gratitude inducers, and by backing them into reverse like this, you will find the blessings multiplying at an amazing rate." So I really liked that. She said gratitude can be and lead us to, she's talking about praying for other people. She said it's good to remind yourselves of those who do suffer from others. So she's saying, in other words, when you think of those things, pray for people that maybe you know of that do have those issues that so, and I like that because I kind of use that one a lot on my kids. I often will say to my kids, and I say it to myself too, and it works. It really does work if you do that, if you think of those things, because say you have a problem, and something just happened recently, and I can't remember because of course my brain is drawing a blank now. One of my kids came to me with some kind of a problem, and I did that exact thing. They came to me with a problem, and they were like, "Oh, I'm having this problem," and I basically said, "You know what? At least you don't have this problem, right?" Or even if you think of it, gosh, we could just go on and on about that. Even just, "Oh, I got to go out and work today, and it's a horrible, rainy, yucky, cold day," right? And I'm going to be, I'm really not looking forward to this. Well, at least you have a job to go to, right? Some people wish they could just go work and they can't find a job, So, like that. I think that's a great way to try to be. And, in other words, I guess we could put it looking on the bright side, right? Find the silver lining, right? Always looking for that silver lining. And I think that's a great way to be, and a great way to try to get into the habit of looking at things like that in that situation, Any situation we come into, try to find that silver lining, because there always is one. And there always is somebody else that is going through something, even more, difficult sometimes, So those were the things. The last thing, the only other thing that I really liked that she mentioned at one point is that when we are thankful, to be loud about it. And I didn't read from that part, but it was kind of in the beginning of the chapter, and I really appreciated what she was saying. She was basically saying, like, when we are thankful for something, don't be scared to be loud about it, you know? And I kind of was laughing to myself because I've gotten in the habit of being like that, and I don't care who's around or who hears me thanking God. I just start doing it in public or whatever, because you know what? I think that it's a good, I don't know, I just think that it's just what I want to do. I want to voice my enthusiasm for what God has done or what he's doing. Like, even if I'm in the supermarket and say they have, you know, and you guys know, we've all been going through it, right? With this corona stuff. You know, they don't have certain things in the market sometimes, right? Like paper towels, or we all went through the toilet paper thing, you know, where we couldn't find any toilet paper, for goodness sakes. That I will never understand. Why toilet paper? Anyway, but yeah, so when I have been in the market and they do have something that I was looking for, I have yelled out, "Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus, that there's some toilet paper right here. Yes, thank you." And, you know, people kind of look like, "Oh, okay," but I don't care, you know, because I think that it's good to be boisterous with our thankfulness. And one little story came to my mind that happened to me recently. And it's a cool little story, but I entered this raffle at my daughter's school. This was actually last winter. So time is flies. But yeah, I entered this little raffle at her school because we have, like I mentioned to you guys, I have 6 kids. So now 2 of my kids are adult age older, but I have a 15-year-old, 13, almost 14-year-old. She'll be 14 in a few weeks. 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and then I have my 3-year-old daughter. So all of those, you know, the 3 of them especially are close in age. They're all coming up to that age where they're, you know, teenage years. Pray for us. And driving. They want to get licenses and drive, right? Now, it's expensive, okay? A lot more expensive than it used to be, that's for sure. And so anyway, I'm at this carnival at my daughter's school, and they had this raffle for a free, if you win this, you get a driving school certificate, all paid for, the driving school, everything. And this is like almost $600, okay? No joke. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I'm so, you know, I put all my tickets in there, okay, into that driving school certificate thing. And I said a little prayer. I did. I said a little prayer. I said, God, come on, we need this one. This would just be such a blessing. This would be so wonderful, because this particular daughter that this would be for, she's really eager to get her license. She wants to get it like as soon as she's that age to get it, you know, she's like that. Some kids aren't as eager, but she's super eager. So I was like, okay, you know, this would be so great if we could just get this paid for. That would be wonderful. So I said a little prayer. Okay, well, you know, forward the next week, I get a call on the phone from the woman, the secretary at the school, and she's like, oh, you know, Mrs. Young, you won the raffle. And I just started yelling at the top of my lungs on the phone with this woman. I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. And she was just on the other end of the phone, just like kind of silent, you know, and she didn't know what was in the envelope either, because she just saw, you know, she just got the envelope and said I was the winner, and they gave it to her and told her to call me. and she's like, oh my goodness, whatever's in this envelope, Mrs. Young, must be really, really, really good, huh? Like and I told her, I said, are you kidding me? This is like $600 worth of, that we don't have to worry about. And she was like, oh wow. So, I mean, I did not hold back. I was thanking God. I was just like, yeah, I was just so excited, so happy. And I mean, it's just little things like that, guys, that I think that, I've gotten in the habit of being like that. If there's people around, if my kids have friends over or whatever, I don't care. I will be like, thank you, Lord Jesus. Thank you, God. Thank you for everything. Oh, you're so good. I'll do it in the store. I'll do it I don't care. And, I like that. I enjoy being like that. I used to really not be like that. I used to be more reserved and a little bit like, but I'm at the point with my life where I'm like, you know what? I am going to give thanks to God, and I don't care who's going to hear me, and I don't care what people think, I really don't. I want to, again, like I said, I want to have that. I want people to look at me and say, wow, she's, whatever. People might think I'm a little cuckoo, but that's okay. I know that I'm not. I know that I'm just giving, my Heavenly Father all the praise that He so deserves. Anyway, and I just think it's a good way to be. And she kind of spoke about how we should be like that. We should be boisterous and enthusiastic in our Thanksgiving, to God. And there's times to be quietly thankful too, don't get me wrong, it's not like and I'm thinking more of other people. You don't want to embarrass somebody or, things like this, but there are times to be excited and not be scared to voice Thanksgiving. So guys, I'm going to end it there. Again, these are just more gems to really think on, guys. I hope that, I'm sorry this one was a little bit of a, talking about the negativity of it all, but you know what? It's the reality, guys. We live in a world that is riddled with all of the things that I listed today. Entitlement, just forgetfulness, not being thankful for God's grace in our lives, comparison, always comparing, everybody else, and that this one doesn't have it as hard as me, that one they don't understand, being like that. All of those things, this world is riddled with that. So it is so easy for us to just get sucked in and to fall into those traps ourselves, because it's all around us, in the media, in the movies, in the everything, So, we always have to be, like she said, I'm going to say it again because I really, really loved what she said. We have to be intentional and vigilant about making sure that we are keeping a grateful spirit in ourselves, in our lives. And we want to do that, guys. We want to do that with our husbands, our wives, our families. And it will change. I said this before in another video, and I'm going to say it again. And guys, I've experienced this. I have purposely set out to be more grateful in my own life, in my own marriage, in my own personal life, and I can testify to you that it does make a difference. It really does change the atmosphere in a relationship. And like I said to you guys a little bit ago in this video, we all fall into patterns sometimes. We don't mean to, right? It's not like you purposely want to hurt, you know what I mean? It's not like you're doing it on purpose. But we do, because we all struggle with our own issues within ourselves. And we all have the tendency to be negative sometimes and to be whining and complaining and these things. And it's so easy to just fall into those patterns again. And it's but like she said, it's so worth the work. If you put the work in to try to change those patterns and work towards, even if you don't feel like, telling your children or your husband, positive things sometimes, okay? Just to do it and to see that things will the atmosphere will start to change. I just got a text from one of my kids. Okay, that can wait. But yeah, it's things like that, and that make all the difference, and it does change the atmosphere, And sometimes I've learned this in my own life, you have to be the one to initiate the change. Don't wait for the other person, Don't go into this, well, you know what? I'm going to wait because they're wrong. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait for this person to come and do whatever, be nice to me or whatever it is. A lot of times, guys, I've learned you have to be the one to do it. And for whatever reason, and if you take that if you are the initiator, you will be blessed. Okay, you will be blessed, and even if you were right and they were wrong, whatever it may be, okay? God is so good. I'm telling you guys, He will bless you. He will see your effort. He will see that you're making these efforts and that you are trying and you are trying to do things like the way He wants us to, and that He will bless that situation. And I've never regretted doing something that I know that God is telling me to do. It might be hard. It might be going against my nature, what I want to do. And I might have to step out and do something that I'm like, I don't want to do, but I've never regretted it. Never. And only good has come from these things. So I'm looking forward to continuing reading, guys. I don't know if I'm going to be able. I was looking at this book, and I might have to go a little longer than November. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I do want to finish it up with you guys. I hope you guys are enjoying these episodes. I hope that I'm blessing you guys. I hope that, good is coming from this. And I'm looking forward to continuing on with it, learning more, sharing it with you all. Again, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, and feel free to leave comments. I would love to interact with any of you guys out there. And until next time, guys, I hope you guys are all doing good out there, guys. Remember, keep your peace, keep your joy, and stay grateful, guys. And until next time, God bless.